Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hi, this is Richard Jacobs with Future Tech Podcast. I'm talking with Kyle Kemper. He's the director of the Blockchain Association of Canada. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Richard. How are you doing today?
Getting there. Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. So what does the Blockchain Association do? It may sound like an obvious question, but listeners may not know.
Yeah, no doubt. So the Blockchain Association of Canada is an industry association around blockchain technology. So we are interfacing with government and heads of industries to showcase the potential of blockchain technology, Bitcoin included, and facilitate the discussion and respond to media requests and act as a bit of a matchmaker as well. So there, with all the enthusiasm and opportunity in the blockchain space, it's really important that the companies are able to kind of focus on building and know that they have some representation at an industry level to push forth the agenda of blockchain with policymakers and officials.
Yeah, it seems like there's two camps. There's the Bitcoin cryptocurrency camp that are in love with a store of value and being able to use it for transactions and the unbanked, et cetera, which is great and extremely important. And then there's another group that doesn't want to talk about that, and they just want to talk about blockchain technology, like the R3 consortium, Ripple, companies like that. Which one do you represent? Or do you represent both, and who do you have coming to you more often?
We were originally the Bitcoin Alliance of Canada, and we just rebranded to encompass a little bit more. And we're all certainly large kind of believers in cryptocurrency and the power of open public ledgers, the notion of the internet versus intranet, and let's call some of these private blockchains as like the intranet. Then if we look to the history of the internet, there was a big competition in the early days between these two parties, but ultimately the open system prevails. So, but I would also say that within blockchain technology, there's also a lot of things we're talking about, digital content and decentralized storage solutions and digital identity and digitizing registries using the cryptography or using the benefits that blockchain integration affords. So we're not exclusive to kind of anyone. We try to be kind of impartial and just represent the goals of the larger industry.
What kind of use cases are your personal favorite? Which ones are you attracted to just because you think they really are a great solution or you like them? Or, let's talk about a few that you've seen.
Yeah, sure. So, first and foremost, Bitcoin, digital money that's based on kind of sound money economics, meaning limited supply, known supply, open abilities for anybody to kind of partake in the system. This is the path to financial inclusion for the globe. Bitcoin is poised to do this. With all the attention it's been getting and the traction and the demand, we're no longer seeing it being usable for kind of the small value transactions, but that will just present new opportunities, and we'll see some new solutions come about to solve some of the current issues. But absolutely, I think Bitcoin is just phenomenal. It's my kind of number one. Number two is like digital identity and the notion of individuals being able to store pieces of digital identity in a sharded fashion, meaning, each piece of identity is kind of separate. And a lot of people think when they think of digital identity, they think that, it's just like, it's one piece, like your driver's license. But if you think about your driver's license, there's actually a lot of different pieces of identity on there. There's your driver's license number, which is, I guess, your permit to drive globally. But then they also have things like address and dates of birth, heights, eye colors. Like each of those can represent, individual specific identity components. So as as the solutions for digital identity kind of come about, and become a little bit more kind of consumer friendly and adoptable, we have the opportunity to start carrying less cards, but also share less sensitive information with people who frankly have no business having it. If you think about going into a nightclub and when you give, that doorman your driver's license, the risk is little, but you're exposing your private keys to your identity. Like they simply do not need to know where you live, what your name is, what your birthday is. All they need to know is if you're over, 21 or 19 in Canada or 18 in Quebec. So
it's true. I mean, a lot of services, they're very invasive, even low-level ones. It's crazy. And writing your name on a piece of paper or having it stored in 20 or 30 databases, which, they get hacked all the time. I've been the victim of identity theft at least 6 times in my life, to certain degrees. But yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah. So we're on the precipice of solving, a lot of this, hyper paper consumption, redundant, ridiculous paper consumption, and form management and mailing around of documents. It's absurd. And the costs of all these processes ultimately get passed on to the consumer. So, there's a great opportunity for optimization, efficiency, cost cuttings, but more than that, there's an opportunity for enhanced services and, in my belief, an age of seamless experience.
Okay. So who comes to you and what services do you provide to them? Individuals that want to start companies, existing companies, big institutions, and what do you do to help them?
Yeah, so one of my roles is as the executive director of the Blockchain Association of Canada, and certainly, if people have challenges or right now we're looking at kind of the GST debate around Bitcoin in Canada, and GST, for anyone who doesn't know, is their general sales tax in Canada. So it's a 5% sales tax, consumption tax gets added. And there's talk of whether or not Bitcoin should be, the sale of Bitcoin should be subject to a 5% sales tax. We don't believe that should be the case. That makes it that it puts a real new barrier towards use of it. It's more of a, currency model. It shouldn't be there. But that's the kind of initiative that companies don't want to necessarily fight that kind of a battle with their name out there. But they'd like to pool together and, work underneath kind of a nonprofit association banner in order to kind of move that conversation forward and, showcase, why, that is not an efficient regulation and, propose, better solutions. So that's what I do, with the association. But then on a personal side, I've been working, in the space for the better part of 4 years now, and have been working with a whole bunch of different companies, from exchanges to, I used to work with ChangeTip for a while, and I've got a bunch of many of my colleagues in the industry are doing exciting projects, and I'm assisting and facilitating and helping and advising. So there's a bunch of different areas to which I'm kind of helping, and also we're participating as part of the Global Blockchain Forum, which is trying to trying to kind of get across the knowledge that the governments of the world need a little bit of guidance with regards to blockchain, and there's many countries that aren't going to be able to kind of keep up the speed. So through a kind of a global federation of nonprofits, we can kind of set forth some guiding principles towards, assisting companies or countries be on the forefront of the technology, as opposed to, being followers or being behind it, or at worst being detrimental to its growth, which also happens.
What do you see as the biggest challenges, particularly, let's start with Bitcoin, to them, it's not a them, but the Bitcoin scaling, falling under some onerous regulation? What's the biggest challenges that you think the protocol and its use is going to face in the next year or two?
Like, we're speaking about the Bitcoin protocol itself?
Well, the whole ecosystem. Yeah, Bitcoin, again, different countries want to regulate it differently and do regulate it differently or don't. So the whole ecosystem, the whole Bitcoin ecosystem, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, countries can, it's important to understand where regulations can fall. Regulations do not, you can't regulate Bitcoin per se. You can regulate it within countries, within jurisdictions. You can regulate exchanges. You can have KYC, AML requirements and obligations. You can have a suspicious transaction reporting, STRs. Those are all the kind of rules and regulations you can have. You can have policies around capital gains taxes and losses and and money movement. You can attempt, I suppose, to require people to file disclose when they do large transactions. But again, a lot of the voluntary stuff isn't really scalable itself, and often leads to kind of corruption and people, and an inequality, because there's some people who are are not following the rules and everybody else pays for it. So, and I speak a lot about it in this vein too, that this technology isn't something that, needs to conform to existing regulations. We should be looking at this technology and looking at how do we update our entire regulatory systems to, to be powered and to benefit from this. One of the things I talk about at length is specifically the GST and consumption tax in general. In its current form and fashion, you have businesses and entrepreneurs who are responsible for collecting sales tax and then holding on to it and then periodically doing reporting, and they're able to do some offsets, but it puts the liability on the individual and on the individual business, and it just exposes them to some risk. Whereas with digital currency, we have the opportunity to in association with digital identity and business identities, to attach GST addresses to your point of sale terminals or to your business wallets, so that on any revenue that comes in, GST is automatically allocated directly to the government account, and it doesn't sit in your account. Tax collection is instantaneous, and because of the virtues of low fees within the crypto space, and believe me, we're going to get down to really low fees, in short order, as new solutions come on the market. There will be no reason for the businesses not to start getting on board. And speaking just to a little bit of a tangent, speaking about business adoption, a lot of people ask when is the mom and pop shop going to accept Bitcoin, or when is that restaurant going to start accepting Bitcoin? And I don't believe that underneath the current system, the way it is, like any of them would really. It's just not better than what we have. Like in Canada, we have pretty advanced payment tech. I got a credit card, it just taps. But I'm still getting paper receipts. I'm not getting digital copies of my items. I'm not getting digital warranties. I'm not getting digital asset tokens for what I've bought. So I think it's once we have kind of that solution that we're really going to be ready for some serious serious merchant adoption. Like once the solution is much better and consumers are asking for it, and and sign up is just dead simple, like that's when we're going to see some real sign on.
Okay, interesting. Do you guys interface with the blockchain education network? That deals with high schools and colleges.
Yeah. I mean, we interface. I know a lot of the guys over there really well, and fully support them, and want to help push it forward. But I would be lying if I said we're actively partnered on university and education and crypto education. I mean, I've done some stuff with the Ben Network, to help promote and help educate. But there's many different forces like this out there, helping push the needle forward, and I want to be able to support, and we need to kind of validate each other as well, and come together towards the common goals. But in Canada, we have Ben is here. It's across many of the universities, and they're doing great work. And I think they're poised to be an excellent organization, towards bringing on the next waves of university students.
Okay. Are there blockchain associations in other countries, and how many? And do you communicate with those associations? Are they all under a common head, or are they all independent?
It's very kind of distributed. There's I'm part of the global we're part of the Global Blockchain Forum. So, and that's in the United States, there's the Digital Digital Chamber of Commerce, led by Perry Ann Boring, and they're doing fantastic work. And there's also Jerry Brito's Coin Center. In Australia, there's ADCA. There's the New Zealand Blockchain Association of New Zealand. There's the Japanese Blockchain Association. There's the Dutch Blockchain Association. There's lots of these kind of different groups working within their respective nations to I think at the core right now it's education. And some groups are a little bit heavier on advocacy, the Digital Chamber is definitely more of an advocacy group, and they've got a big membership of companies in there who they represent. So, all in all, there are many different kind of associations, but there's also loose associations too. There's meetup groups that are comprised of thousands and thousands of members. We had an event in Toronto a couple of weeks ago that we had 1,200 people register for it, and I think over 800 people attended it. It was incredible. We had to get an extra room with a live feed, and we were able to attract an unbelievable list of speakers to come out. And in this vein, I think events are a great way to open eyes and get the light bulbs to go off, give people their blockchain moments, if you will.
That's great. Okay. Any other perspectives you have, because you deal with the high level speakers, because you run the association? What do you see maybe that the common person that uses cryptocurrency, or even the companies that are in the space, don't see?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's having been so involved in this for so long, and working with so many companies, at a certain point, I feel like there's that Neo Matrix effect, where it's you literally look at society and see anything from the UPS truck to to waiting in line at the grocery store, to the barcodes on the packages, to listening to an ad on Spotify. You can see where everything's kind of going, and it's going. And you can sense on at a scale that there's a lot of positive momentum in this. I also we need to understand that it's pretty chaotic too. There's a lot of groups working on projects all over the place. There's a lot of moonshot projects taking place, and like as far as Bitcoin goes, this is why I'm such an optimist about Bitcoin, is because like, you know, when you have 1,000 companies working on awesome projects, all it's going to take is a couple of them to like, you know, to go viral and hit it, you know, to take it to the next level. I think one of the areas that we haven't seen a whole lot of uptake and adoption from is the entertainment industry and, you know, and the arts industry. And I think, you know, once we start getting some influencers from over there kind of in, you know, we're going to see some uptake, but definitely, you know, you can sense it coming. One of the things too is like, you know, we're all kind of distributed and working on this on our own, or not. Or I wouldn't say that, but like, you know, there's a lot of people all over the place working on these projects. But overall, we're not seeing you know, the neighbors on it, and within our social circles, like, you know, there's not mass, like within our like non-blockchain social circles, there isn't kind of a whole bunch of uptake. But I would just like, you know, just tell everybody, like, just be patient. Like, you know, it's coming. Like when the neighbors and when your friends are starting to be on this, like, you know, we're winning, and it's going to be, you know, I don't even want to speculate where the price will be, but it's going to be a lot higher than it is right now. So
yeah,
you know, it's a marathon and not a sprint.
That's true. Yeah, it's a crazy marathon where the runners are running all over different paths, and the rules of the race keep changing, and there's really no end. Really, really crazy.
Like, there's no end to it, and a lot of people ask, like, what's success in this industry? And honestly, like, I don't even know, but I know I know that the pre-Bitcoin financial system and the effects on civilization of centralized monetary policy are something that I'm looking forward to their powers being reduced en masse, and I'm much more looking forward to the power of the people and sound money within currency. So, you know, that's what keeps me driving, because you know, as Andreas Antonopoulos says, when, you know, you have 700,000 people, like an elite 700 overseeing 7 billion, what happens when you flip that pyramid upside down? You know, it's gonna be interesting.
Definitely, yeah. Okay. You know, last question: is there anything that you'd like to bring up for listeners? You know, how can they get in contact with the Blockchain Association of Canada or their country's blockchain association? If they want to reach out to you and talk to you, you know, what's the best way to reach you, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at Kyle Kemper on Twitter. I'm very available and happy to talk. I mean, I'm getting pretty darn busy with a bunch of stuff, but, like, you know, I like to think that I'm fairly available, and I like to help people and like to kind of match make. Same with the association. You can just reach out to us. If you're not in Canada, I would look for local meetup groups. I just get involved. Like, you know, like if you're passionate about this, like, you know, do whatever it is you love to do. If you want to get more active in this, you know, check out there. And if there are local groups, then, you know, join them and help them and try and like bring together the community. If there aren't local groups, start a local group and message it out and get the word out, and people will come. Like, everything starts small. Don't expect you're going to get 800 people out to your first showing. Like, you know, this is literal that, like, in Toronto, it's been a growing community for, like, you know, 7 years now. So, like, you know, we're at a pretty mature stage and growing. But, you know, you'd be surprised what happens when, you know, you go on Google or Meetup and type in your local area and type in Bitcoin or blockchain, and you find some like-minded people. And also, like, you know, I would also recommend people to think big about, if, like, you know, joining entrepreneurs who are working out there. Like, you know, think big, act fast, fail fast, ideally as well. Like, you know, don't draw a shitty project out forever. And, like, you know, take advice and listen to advice and surround yourself with good people. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I firmly believe that, you know, you'll come out on top. And also, I would recommend everybody, like, in order to get into Bitcoin, you don't need to buy like, $10,000 worth. Like, literally, you can just start buying like, a little bit all the time. Like, there's services like Bitwage that can allow you to apportion a small amount of your salary, and get that direct to your kind of your Bitcoin. Like, think of Bitcoin as like a savings account, but also like, you can use it too. Like, it's a super powerful technology, and all the other cryptos too are really exciting opportunities. And there's now the whole ICO emergent markets, and which is really interesting and also really disruptive. So take a good look at those and see whether or not your project might be right for an ICO. And if it is, go after it, man. But just at the end of the day, try and be true and be honest. And if you're going, like, a warning to scammers, if you're going to scam, like, you're going to get caught and your reputation is going to be destroyed. So don't go out there and scam people. You're not going to get away with it. In the long term, it won't work. Being true and honest and good is the way that, you get ahead in this world.
Right.
These of black market Wall Street stuff, those are coming to an end.
Well, great, Kyle. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Happy to.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.